This is Three Players and a Podcast in the flesh, although clearly you're not with us. But we're all together for the first time in one studio. 3 players, 3 topics, and hopefully a podcast out the other end of it. This is a World Cup special, which is handy because we've got 3 players that have never won it with us to talk all things World Cup. Although, had she would have been the Golden Boot winner. Jennifer Beattie is here. Everything she touches is golden, Rachel Yankee. And Golden Grahams is her favourite breakfast. I couldn't think of anything else golden for Izzy Christiansen. Welcome all to the World Cup podcast. Does it feel a bit different, Jen?
Oh, straight away. Yeah, definitely. I'm definitely going to miss Yanks' kids in the background of Zoom, the Zoom delays. But yeah, it's exciting to all be here in person and have a chat.
Just for you, I left that deliberate pause in, so you thought it was on Zoom.
Right. I was like, have I said something wrong?
You know what to do if you have.
Yeah.
So we're in the studio for the first time, which means it's a special occasion to have you all together. And only one of us is actually heading off to Australia and New Zealand for the World Cup. Packed, are we, Izzy?
Not yet, no. Need to.
What are you most looking forward to about going to the World Cup?
I think the general excitement of the tournament. I think it's, I went to Australia last year and it's a country which, is growing in terms of the football appetite, and you can really feel the hunger from their country, Australia, and obviously New Zealand co-hosting. I think it's a superb part of the world, and I think that everyone's going to now understand what it's like to be a Matilda or a New Zealand player who has to travel in international breaks during domestic seasons 30 hours across the world to go and play for their country. So I think there'll be a few nations moaning when they arrive in Australia, but once the tournament kicks off, I think it's going to be absolutely fantastic.
Kicking off with that first match, your mate playing, Ireland against Australia, Jen, the noise is going to be immense.
Yeah, it would be class. Like, obviously, Ireland are the ones who kind of stopped Scotland from going, so it's a bit of a...
Sorry.
No, it's fine. But in the same breath, like, as soon as we didn't make it, I was buzzing for them because it's their first major tournament, and to be at a World Cup, like, the way that the game's accelerated most recently, I think it's... Yeah, I'm excited for it, especially Katie, obviously captaining. There's no better feeling than that, so it's massive, and yeah, I'll be buzzing for her.
First 2 minutes, can we expect like a McCabe loosener?
Absolutely. First 30 seconds, I'd say, quicker than that. No, to be fair, when she plays for Ireland, I feel like or the captain's armband, I feel like she's more level-headed, I'd say. I think it's different when you're leading a country and setting an example and playing for your country. It doesn't get much bigger than that. So, but no, she'll be well up for it, and she's still relatively quite a young captain, I'd say. So she's still, developing in that as well. But it's massive for her. It's huge for Ireland as well. So I'm excited for her.
Let's do our first topic then, Rachel of the Yankee. Big moments, special moments, and could this be the moment? The 3 topics coming up this week. When you look at look at me and go, what? Now I can see you insulting me. Looks to Jen. Big moments then, heading into a tournament. What's it like as a player? How does it change, regardless of what that tournament is? What will they be feeling at the moment?
Yeah, I think excitement. I think maybe a little bit anxious. But yeah, I suppose different teams where they're going in and what the expectation is. I suppose England now going in as European champions have got a bit of a target on their back, so they've got to make sure they handle that pressure of everyone wanting to beat you and knock you off the top spot. But yeah, I think they've got a fantastic opportunity, so good a chance as any.
When Izzy, we went out to watch. I'm bringing it up now, but we were there in France in 2019 when Scotland and that final group game. I think you were there with us as well, Rachel, and seeing just the different level of pressure that's on these players, even just like you were watching some of your England teammates out there, and you feel it even if you're sat in the crowd.
Yeah, and obviously following the FIFA World Cup on Twitter, you get to see these kind of throwback clips of the tournaments over the years, and there was a recent one of England being knocked out in 2019 by the USA, and obviously the heartbreak associated with that for all those associated with the Lionesses. But as Yank said, the pressure on England is much greater. And after I was at the send-off game at Milton Keynes on Saturday against
Greatest
Portugal.
game ever.
Yeah, I mean, let's not go too deep into that, but I do think that they need to adapt a little bit tactically. I think that they've got this player, and I think Lauren James, I think she, where she plays will be pivotal to how England are going to progress in the tournament, because, with the target on the back, people want to beat you, and they give that extra 5-10%. And with the crowds over there, the noise and how much spotlight is on the tournament, like you say, you've got to find ways to handle that pressure.
We'll come to Lauren James. I bet she'll pop up in some of your players to watch. But Jen, when you were in that moment in France, what was it like in the build up to it? When you get to camp, how different was it?
I mean, yeah, I feel like everyone's experience is so different, right? But for me personally, we'd qualified for 2017 Euros 2 years prior, and I missed out just through injury just before the tournament. I blew my ankle ligaments like 6 weeks before the opening game. So for me personally, I was more just like, just be fit. I just wanted to be fit and actually get there. So I remember like just going above and beyond, making sure I was in the best sort of mental, physical shape ever. But then there was the added of, okay, we'd got to the Euros and now it was a World Cup, so it was even bigger. The Euros is the Euros, but the World Cup's worldwide, to not point out the obvious. But so it was huge. It was Scotland's World Cup, and it was massive, not just for me personally, but as a country as well. And the fact that it was held in France, and I have a bit of family that live out there, it was just it was a huge occasion, and it was amazing to be a part of. Despite the way it ended for us, it was still class. I feel lucky enough to have made one major tournament, let alone the players that make them, every few years. I think it's incredible. So it's still just as special to me knowing that I got to one World Cup.
Well, I'm still bitter on your behalf. So I don't know how you keep it together. It stunk the place out that you didn't get through against Argentina. You scored that goal, though, didn't you? I mean, I'm just saying it like it was the only goal of your career, but you scored in that match.
She only scores in big games.
Yeah.
The end in heartbreak, though. Like, bizarre. Like, yeah, it was a weird one. Like, again, that game had every emotion ever. Like, so I scored in that game, and weirdly enough, that is a rugby stadium as well, that my dad had scored for Scotland against France 30 odd years prior. So it was just this weird mix of emotions. And then the whole VAR situation with penalties being retaken, and it was one of the craziest games I've ever been a part of. And what made it even more annoying is they didn't even use goal line technology going into the Premier League after that. But it was difficult. But again, like sport, it has all the emotions. We've all been through crazy games like that. But yeah, it was gut wrenching to end it in that way. But yeah, scoring was fun.
Yeah. Do you ever have those out of body experiences? And this may not apply to the tournament, but do you right now, looking at all three of you with your pictures in the background in cartoon form is pretty weird. But do you ever have that where you're going, oh, do you have to go, right, I'm here and try and focus on that moment?
I definitely do. Like, especially, I mean, we can all probably sit here and say the way that the game's grown as well. Like, I definitely think it's almost more important to have those moments. I definitely, in the Wolfsburg game, sellout crowd at the Emirates, I remember specifically having moments looking at the crowd and thinking, this is amazing, like, take it in, because I think games pass you by. I think we've all played in games where you don't remember much of. And I remember going to that game.
No, I genuinely don't.
Yeah.
Do you remember scoring that hat trick against the USA? No.
Oh, it was great. Yeah.
But that, when we're thinking, Rachel, about the fact that Ireland, Katie McCabe and co are playing in that first match against Australia to play the hosts in that sellout stadium, they've had to make the stadium bigger. Well, they haven't made the actual stadium bigger. But
that's such an easy job. Let's just expand it by 10,000 seats.
Just do it. But they've had to do that because of how many want to go. So how do you get that sort of focus in that moment?
Firstly, it's so disappointing that they have to do that, because why have they not done that before? Because now we should be looking at the women's game and going, look, let's get a massive stadium and we will fill it.
What was
rather
the
than
first capacity?
Wait, that's topic 3.
Oh, okay,
so
sorry.
Don't go to that one yet.
My bad. You said it and I'm like, raging.
I'll remember that. Give it 10 minutes.
Yeah. No, I think for Ireland, it's a fantastic game to play the hosts on the first game. Like, you have nothing to lose, because, with no disrespect, no one's expecting Ireland to beat Australia. So you go out there and you just give everything. And, I think it's a beautiful game for them to go out in their first World Cup and play. I think, relish the moment, to be honest.
I think it's a really interesting game, not just because it's co-host opener, but also the way it's poised, because Ireland thrive off being an underdog, and that's essentially what's got them to the World Cup, that kind of siege mentality, and so do Australia, despite being co-hosting, and they're always going to go with a target on the back because of superstar Samantha Kerr. But I feel like you've got two underdogs there, or two teams that want to be the underdog, battling, and I envisage Ireland blocking in a deep block and playing on the counter. But then that doesn't really suit the way Australia play. So it's going to be an absolutely fascinating collision of styles of football. And also, special mention to my previous team at Everton, Courtney Brosnan, goalkeeper for Ireland. I tell you what, she thrives in these moments. In the WSL last season, when we played against Man United away, it's always a tough fixture. But Courtney just comes into her own in that situation. And in all honesty, we were being peppered. And that is when Courtney steps up. And I can see her in front of 86,000 in a few weeks' time at that Stadium Australia in Sydney. You know, just being an absolute wall for Ireland and getting them off to a good start. But very excited.
How much then is that going to help that kind of team unity and bonding? They've got to go into that tournament thinking, right, I've got you. And regardless of whether we think they're better players than us, actually that might give us that extra over the line percentage.
Yeah, and obviously there's so many psychological hurdles that you jump over to get to that point. But then in the game, you know, regardless of the result, it's like, well, how do we move on from this? Because tournament football, you know, it's about progressing, you know, getting out of the group, and you've got 3 group games to do that. So I think that for both teams, Australia will be the favourites in that game. But I think for both teams, it's like, okay, if Australia win, okay, how do you manage your emotions for the next game? If Ireland lose, you're then having a different meeting in their meeting room back at their team hotel going, okay, how do we then still try and progress out of the group? Because irrelevant of who you are and where your ranking is in the world, like, the objective has to be get out of your group.
Best team bonding that you've had? I heard Louise Quinn was saying that actually Ireland, that Vera Pauw's had them up at weird times in the morning, just trying to get them to be ready for the fact that they might have jet lag.
You would hate
not
that.
be a
I was
good-
just saying.
No, I'm an early riser. I was one of the
I-
first up at England.
Really?
I was at optional breakfast all the time, so
Yeah.
that don't bother me. But the fact that someone's telling you to get up at that time, the team bonding, I don't think so.
My first thought was like, you hate
No.
that.
No. I didn't mind. I didn't mind getting
Why is
up.
that team bonding though? What's the?
What, just get,
Just
were
being
they
in the
doing
moment.
anything?
Yeah, no, and you've got each other's. I don't know what they were doing.
Well,
at
what
3
time?
o'clock in
What
the
time were
morning.
they getting
I
up?
wasn't there, Izzy.
Okay.
No,
What-
Is that kind of trying to bring everyone together?
What happens?
beforehand?
Just like a team quiz. Do you know what I mean? Keep it classic.
Keep it
Yeah, and those days are gone.
it's 3 a.m. Come on, Jen. Let's have the quiz.
Yeah.
Everyone looks to you in that moment. She's organising the night out. Quiz.
Yeah.
But when was this whole getting up early? Because
Oh,
they're
you
not
were
going
already-
out to Australia yet, are they?
Well, you know when they did the USA trip where they
Yeah.
played, she said that they were trying to get them in the mindset of you might have to play at different times. You got to do different media training. You know, everything becomes a bit more structured and routine around it.
Fair enough.
Thank you.
Relax, coach, man.
Yeah, over there. Woo, we're not doing any team bonding. When you look at the teams though, can you remember like that was the best team that I thought, okay, I'm going to play extra for you alongside me? Did you have those kind of units, or sometimes when you felt maybe a bit out of it, did you always have really strong teams going into big games?
We mean like a team spirit?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think so. I think you've got to. I think, especially when you go into tournament football, it's like it's more when the 11 that goes out, you know your job, you know what you're going to do. So it's making sure that the people that are on the bench, the people when you're not playing, that everybody's in the same place and everybody feels valued and understands what their role is. That the team that gets that right is the team, I think, that has the biggest strengths to go on and win the whole tournament.
Jordan Nobbs was saying that in the run-up to the tournament. She said actually she's going to be one of those experienced players that she might not necessarily have the minutes on the pitch, but she's going to be important as a leader off it, which is one of those things that's been thrown at England. Oh, where are the leaders this time round? Because Leah Williamson's not there. But they have that strength. Who's going to be the really important older generation of players? Oh, look at you. That perhaps going to stand up for these different teams going into the tournament. How important is that?
Yeah, I mean, I think experience, I guess, is a balance, isn't it? You can't have too much experience, you can't have too much youth. I think the perfect squads have the best balance of everything, right? They have the raw talent coming through, like your Lauren James, just coming into like her off the back best season of her life, really, so far anyway. Yeah, for me it's a balance, but it's just important. Experience is just as important as youth, in my opinion. I think it's all adds to that sort of perfect formula. I think the Lionesses last summer was a really good example of that. You had a bit of everything, and I think if we can all sit here and say in the best squads we've ever been a part of, it's been the best balance of that.
I think also a strength for them is that most of them have come through the youth system together. So actually, even though they might not have experience at first team, they've actually know each other, and that goes a long way when you've come through the youth system. You know the players, you feel comfortable with the people around you. Um, there's your leaders, but also from the outside, how do people determine leaders? The
Yeah.
person that you see screaming and shouting and pointing, that
Yeah,
isn't
or
always
the older one.
Yeah.
Like who's seen young kids, like even Stanners or Kira, like
Yeah.
young leaders that kind of were young at the time, but like showed
Mm.
so much sort of confidence and like
Well, I
ability.
remember when
step.
Jordan came into the Arsenal squad and she was a youngster. Her leadership skills were fantastic,
Yeah.
but she was one of the youngest players. But she was never scared to get on the ball, to tell people where to go, to and what to do. So, but I don't think people would have necessarily said that she was one of the leaders in the team then.
Yeah.
So, yeah, it's without knowing the squad and knowing people, personally. I don't think we can all sit here and have a little, our opinions, but I don't think
Yeah.
we'll ever know who really calls the shots and who really is in the change room at half time, who's really vocal and helping each other to produce more.
Youth, experience, talent. You can decide which one's which. This is Three Players and a Podcast. Izzy Christensen, Rachel Yankee and Jennifer Beattie. Right, surprise, surprise, the unexpected hits you between the eyes. Izzy, who do you think will be the surprise team in this tournament? We're going to talk favourites, players to look out for, and the one that might make you jump. You weren't expecting this first off, but everyone can say who's their favourite to win. Who's going to be the surprise team in the tournament?
I honestly was reeling off the other day, like teams that could make it to the latter stages, and there was too many teams for the amount of spots there are, which is a sign of the strength of the game. And there's multiple nations who could and have the depth to go on and win it. I think that I was looking at Norway's squad and thinking they should be competing in the latter stages of the tournament with that, on paper, the squad. How they bind together will be an unknown, and obviously we're looking at a Norway team off the back of a very disappointing Euros last year. Obviously getting that stuffing off England in the group stages, thanks to Beth Mead in particular. But I think Norway, if they can get it together, I think they will surprise a few people. I also think Brazil, has slipped under the radar a little bit. You saw that variation in the finalissima against England. I can't remember whether it was it April camp, May camp, can't remember. But yeah, I thought that their tactical variation was impressive, and I think in a major tournament it's two things. It's variation tactically, but it's also squad depth. I think the Euros, England showed that the tactical rigidness won them the Euros, but I think going into the tournament, it's variation. So for me, I think looking out for Norway. If they get it together, they could gather real momentum, and also Brazil.
I'm going
For the
France.
Zoom line gone down again. You think France will be a surprise?
I think they'll be a favourite. Well, they're one of my favourites. I think if you look at, we were chatting about this earlier. The French national team for me have always had the talent, right? They've always had the class, but they've always kind of never really been able to get over that sort of final hurdle and get to the latter stages.
You talk about that because I remember in France we start and go, what are the French team doing? They're imploding again. As players, do you talk about that?
I think you talk about the players that people have in squads, yeah, and the quality and the expectation or current form that players might be in or clubs that they're at and what they've achieved that season. I think the in form is always probably the thing I would speak about the most. Who's in form or who's flying for their club. And I feel like the French national team have always had this reoccurring theme of having just high quality players at top clubs winning things. But for some reason, they've never managed to achieve the top stuff. But I think the Euros, they started to get through that. I think for me, everyone was speaking about them just a little bit differently, more than just having class. It was like people were actually appreciating them character-wise. And I feel like this World Cup, that will just keep going. I feel like for me, they'd be my favourites. Or they are.
Favourites and a surprise favourite maybe? Well, the French were always sort of there. You always feel like they're hovering.
Yeah, I don't disagree with either of you. I think I'd add to that is probably Canada. Everything that's going on, sometimes that gives you a fight about you, a point to prove, another thing to kick on. That would be a team who are they Olympic gold medalists, but now they've got something else to really really be angry about
Yeah.
and really push them on a little bit further. So they'd be a team that I don't think people would want to play against.
I feel like all the teams have got something.
Yeah, but that's what I was going to say.
I also
There's,
think Sweden
there's a lot.
need to be looked out for as well. I think again a little bit of a disappointing Euro campaign, but obviously came up against England in the quarters. But I feel like in tournament football and in your career, you alluded to Jen's experience with Scotland at the World Cup 2019. It's like you have to have a taste of something before you then go on. You see in the Champions League as well.
Yeah.
Like you almost have to have failure. Well, it's not necessarily failure, but you have to be so close to then go out to then go again. And I feel like with Sweden, they obviously Olympic final lost narrowly to Canada. Euros last year, they lost to the best team that was in the tournament, and you go, okay, well, I think there's a little bit of pressure on Sweden now to really show up because again, looking at their squad on paper, like there's some big players in that team.
Should we look at the squads then? Side issue: did you have a Panini sticker book when you were in France in 2019?
Yeah, I did actually.
You did.
I think so.
Who was your favourite player to collect?
What over the actual World Cup?
Yeah.
I think I was just trying to
Was
like.
shiny? No, they didn't.
Definitely
have
not.
players
No.
shiny.
Trying to keep the collect complete the book.
I don't actually think but I remember it being a thing and people being buzzing that we were in it because that was never a thing before.
Was it as good as our logo?
No.
No. For you, when you're going into that big tournament, was there a player you were looking out for? And with that in mind, are they still at this tournament? Is there someone we should be looking for? Who do you think would be the player of the tournament?
Good question. No, I don't think the players that were. I mean, I'm still excited to watch Lauren James play at like a major tournament. That'd be and she obviously wasn't at the World Cup when I was playing. No, I don't remember thinking. For me, I've never really looked at a standout player. I've just like every nation to me and who we were playing, like opening game against England, it was all just massive. It was all just huge. I don't remember ever thinking of one specific player. I can't really. I can't think of anyone right now.
That would have been my shiny Jennifer Beattie. So you said Lauren James we should look out for in this tournament.
Yeah, for
Should
me,
be player of the tournament.
why not? I don't. You can't say why not. Don't think. Who do you ever expect going into these major tournaments of big names that you're saying, okay, again, I'll talk about people in form, and that's Lauren James. She's come off the back of her best season so far, hugely successful with Chelsea, and can I say it's like her time to be on a major platform, a huge stage, and do I think she's got the capabilities? Absolutely.
I think the biggest question, I totally agree with Jen, but I also think the biggest question with Lauren James we saw on Saturday in the send-off game against Portugal, what's her best position? Because it was tight. Portugal defended really well. It was tight and she was on the wing. And I feel like she's developing a little bit of a camaraderie with Lucy Bronze on the right-hand side, which works because it gives Lucy that kind of license to go down the outside and Lauren James to drift in field. And I think that's nice. But I think it's also very similar to what England did in the Euros last summer. You had the wingers coming inside, Lucy getting around the edge. And I think, well, tactically, can you adapt? Can you move forward? And how are you going to be unpredictable? And think, well, maybe moving Lauren James into the centre of the midfield kind of gives England that extra option because Georgia Stanway dropping in, I think it gives, when we see Lauren James at her best, she can take on 4 or 5 players at a time.
Player of the tournament for you?
Player of the tournament for me is Lena Oberdorf.
Why?
Or will be, hopefully, Lena Oberdorf, if my prediction is correct. I just think we're looking at a player who, the heartbreak of the Euros final last year, she was up there with one of the players of the match and the tournament. I think Kira Walsh outshone her that day, but I mean, both in that position, that number 6 role, huge amount of respect. But I think she's going to have matured even more. Massive domestic season with Wolfsburg, big player. I mean, I feel like the team's potentially built around her, the German national team now, in terms of, how do we get the best out of her? And I think that she will be a player I think will thrive at the tournament.
Germany or France, for me, win it if England don't. Rachel, player of the tournament, who are you looking out for?
I'm looking forward to watching Sam Kerr because she's had a fantastic season for Chelsea. She kind of pops up with all these goals and winning trophies, different mentality, but now you're at home, your co-hosts. There's big pressure on her. She's the face of most things. I think when you've got big players, it's made this tournament for her. So I'm looking forward to watching her play and seeing what she can show us and how much better she can become.
She was. I thought she was frightening against England. I can't remember what month that tournament that game was in, but England dominated that game, right? Like possession wise, 2 moments, a goal and an assist, and I was like, she's just no matter what the flow of the game, if you get her on the ball or in a good position up the pitch, creates a goal or scores. Like she's just unbelievable.
She doesn't really feel any pressure, does she? As well with the way that she plays, like
What's she
like you
playing
say.
against?
Oh, she's just a constant threat. I mean, Jen will know better. She's marking her, 2 or 3
Were you
times a
marking her?
season in WSL, but
Pardon?
Were you marking it? Yes, you were.
centre forward against centre back.
She's just she's similar. You know what? She's similar to sort of the kind of Viv Miedema in that sense, that she won't do the running that you'll see the sort of Ellen Whites do, the sort of box to box defending here, there, and everywhere. But she's so intelligent with her movement, so intelligent with when and where to run, and like she beats me in a header every single time. Like she's got this incredible aerial capability,
Fantastic, yeah.
unreal in the air, like for her height. And yeah, she's just one of those players you can't switch off against because you never know when she's gonna attack, basically, or
Can you
like
get in her head?
No,
no. I mean, I've never tried to do that either.
that's not Jen's style. Like
classy,
she's
I'm not.
classy defender.
Yeah, all right.
She's not like I don't know, Puyol or Sergio Ramos who would nip at centre forwards.
So
But
no
you
leg
can't.
left
But you
straight
can't
on.
get in. You can't get in your head. I tried.
No, I think she's
couple
too
of
chill.
seasons
Yeah,
ago, I tried.
She's not like she's just
Yeah. She's not like-
no, she's not like a
Yeah.
Lizzie getting in the head.
Oh, I tried. I failed. Still scored against.
I
her.
think she'd be too chilled. Like she's quite a relaxed character, right?
But that's
Like,
why
she's
it's so
very-
exciting to see someone
Yeah.
like that. A home World
Yeah.
Cup, like
Her tournament will depend on the service she gets.
Yeah.
Like, because she's not Lauren James where she'll pick up the ball, turn and dribble and
no,
create.
Yeah.
but
But
the
she just
Australian team
needs-
is built on that. They know
Exactly.
exactly what they've got to do, and they've
Exactly.
got to get the ball to Sam Kerr.
Yeah.
So
Absolutely.
So that could be a moment for Sam Kerr. I want to sing "This Will Be My Moment Now" or whatever the song was, but I
you
can't right
go
now.
for it.
I won't do it. Anything else briefly you're looking forward to?
You've
Air
already
miles?
asked me that, and I just thought, Air Miles. I'm not looking forward to my carbon footprint.
No.
Not gonna lie. But no, just the whole experience of being out there. Can't wait.
Well said on the carbon footprint, Jen.
I think knowing the way that Lioness is winning it at home at Wembley has accelerated the game in England. Like it would just be cool for that to just keep going. And like Izzy touched on it earlier, with football not necessarily being the biggest sport in Australia, like AFL is massive, cricket's massive, so football's still got that way to progress, but it will. W League.
Cricket. Let's not bring it up.
We can if you want. No, we can't because we've got something far more important to talk about. Kits. Briefly, favourite kit?
Ooh.
I think England are losing on the kit front.
England's always pretty solid.
But, I mean,
The
it's
Australia second kit,
unexpected.
the turquoise blue, is lovely.
Is it?
I do like that.
That is cool, that one.
Spain's
I like
second
that
kit.
colour.
Yes, exactly like the logo.
That works.
Mm.
When people can't see it, like the logo scarf.
Can they not?
Can we also point out on the logo, I said this before, you're the only one that's got a trophy in front of you. Well done.
Player of the
Rachel.
season.
Yeah, exactly. Favourite kit?
I've got what is that? A mug? Oh, we've all got one. Anyway,
Got a hot chocolate.
just hot chocolate. Yeah, first time I've actually looked at the logo. No, I'm only joking. Favorite kit? Yeah, I don't know, to be honest. I quite like. I was looking at it before. Can't even think. I'm not really bothered, to be quite honest. They're all lovely.
That's the right answer, and that went spectacularly well. Any more thoughts from you, Jennifer Beattie?
Well, we can talk about this. I like the USA home one, and you weren't a fan.
Well, it just looks like it's been sprayed with paint, to be quite
Yeah.
honest.
So I like that one. It's cool.
But maybe if I saw it up close and personal,
Right.
then maybe it would have a better effect.
Yeah, there you go.
When it comes to fashion tips, we're all no Leah Williamson, are we? Shame. I like the kit chat. This is Three Players and a Podcast. You can get in touch, use the hashtag 3PP. Finally, then, Megan Rapinoe said this is going to be the World Cup that blows the roof off women's football. Is she right? Expanded tournament. We've got 8 debutantes in it. We're up to 32 teams. Is this the point, we said it with the Euros, when football goes up another notch?
Oh, yeah, I think so.
And why?
Well, again, I agree. I think it will be the best we've had so far, but that's relative to the growth of the game. I think it's fantastic now there's 32 teams involved. I think the biggest question, the challenge is how do you bridge the gap across the world with the resources and supplies to every team to ensure that high performance is at the forefront of every nation moving forward. There has been a number of issues in the build-up to the tournament with various teams, with under-resourced in certain ways, conflict with coaches and boards and federations and stuff like that. But, it's not great to read. Is it a disadvantage? I don't think it's far enough to say it's a disadvantage, because I think every nation is at where they're at, and we've got to respect that a lot of nations, especially European nations, have had a head start in terms of the resources in Europe especially. But I just think, it's the unpredictability of football which is the most exciting thing. And there's absolutely no way any team in this tournament, especially in the group stages, can switch off. You can't underestimate anyone.
Everyone's looking at England-Haiti match first up, going, if they tonk Haiti, and how bad that looks, reflecting back on when the USA did it as well against Thailand. Does that matter? Do you need strength and sort of a bit more parity in those opening matches?
Well, first of all, I do think it matters. I think if you've got people who don't watch women's football yet and still see scores like that, it doesn't engage anyone, right? It's not. We talk about engagement and the exposure and the product of football, and if anything, it just highlights the work that's still to be done in order to still grow the game. I think it's all well and good us sitting here and saying, yeah, the WSL is incredible, and Lionesses and what they did, and USA leading the fort, and Canada going through their difficulties off the pitch, but the gap is still far too big. And I think, hopefully we don't see scores like that, but I think the stats that have come out of still the amount of players being amateur, and resources that are still lacking in so many different countries for women's football, I think they're just as important. So hopefully we don't see scores like that, but if it does, it just highlights an even bigger issue. So I think it's great to highlight the work that's been done, but I think it's even more important to emphasize that there's still such a long way to go in terms of growing the game across the world, really, not just in England.
As players, do you clock that when you see, USA put 13 on, or England put a huge score? And England were averaging 8 goals in the Euros. But does that, as players, the rest of you thinking, we need more competition? Not if you're winning 13-0, you're like, oh,
No, exactly. You want to, as an attacker,
Yeah.
quite like it.
Get your stats up.
But no, I feel like I'm the only person that's actually worried about the Haiti game. I look at it in a total different way, is that I wouldn't want that as my opening game. I'd prefer to play against Denmark, because you know what they're going to do, you know how they play. Do you know what I mean? You can set yourself up. But against Haiti, they're relatively unknown. They also have nothing to lose. And you're playing, for them, all they know is that you're playing England, European champions. Like, that to me is not a game that I would feel that I'd want to go into. Obviously, you've got to go and be professional, but you can't be complacent in that game. So I didn't even think of it as like massive scores. I was thinking you've got to do a real professional job. You've got to go out there and make sure you all stick together. You've got to win that game, because any slip-ups, like I said, Haiti have absolutely nothing to lose. If they get a goal past England, if they get a draw, that is huge for them to push on. So England have got to make sure that they're, right on the ball.
I think the beauty in what we're talking about is generally negative, with the disparity with nations and resources. But I think the beauty in it is looking at Haiti. I'm doing a couple of their games out in Australia, so I've been researching about them. And their coach came from France. So he coached Grenoble FC in the French league. And he said that he met the head of the federation in Haiti at a conference years ago. I think it was back in 2019. And he had this job to take over the Haitian national team, in the pipeline. He took over in 2022, which last year, obviously. And then he's got them qualified for World Cup. What a story. And that combined with what Yanks has said, you look at it and go, yeah, that's a tricky match for England. But also, what a beautiful story that the European, mentality of football has moved over into a country like Haiti. And he's already had a massive impact. So it's going, what can happen in the future if stories like that continue to emerge?
100%. But if you do get beat, what you're going back is saying, well, look what the investment that they've got. We need to now invest more. So you need to put more money into our team so we can compete. So you can flip it kind of either way, I think.
Looked like you were going to say something.
It was on Zoom freeze.
Zoom freeze. No, I agree with Yanks's last point massively. I think if anything, hopefully we don't see big scores, right? But if anything, it does give leverage, if that's the right word, to push for more for those associations. And I think it's great that coaches are taking responsibility in that, and players as well, because I think it's massive. So hopefully we don't see scores like that, but I just genuinely think everyone in the women's game has a responsibility to progress that and to raise concerns where concerns are made, whether you're still at a team with the best resources or ones with the lowest. I think we all have a responsibility to move it in the right direction.
Yeah, I mean, Haiti over the past couple of years as a nation have been through some incredibly tough times as well. So a proper story for them to go and do well. And you're right, looking at England and thinking, why not? Why not? What do we need to do then to bridge those gaps, to make sure? Is it coaches sharing? Is it, as you were saying, almost like this exchange of
Then
ideas?
it does. It comes from.
Also, sorry.
No, go for
you
it.
can always, everyone can have a bad day as well. Because you look at Norway, you've just said how good Norway
Yeah.
are. And England's got 8 past them in the Euros. So you kind of, if consistently through every group stage, then you've got to look at it differently. But everyone can have a bad day.
Well, there's a number of different factors. It's coaches, yeah, of course. More people becoming qualified. High level coaches going into areas where they can have big impacts on the game in respective countries. But also, I've always said with this sort of wider debate, it's all about high performance and how can you bridge the gap. And it's not just going to happen overnight. It happens with people pushing for change, but it also has to correlate towards increasing footballers' ability at playing football. And with that, at this level of World Cup level football, is recovery. Reading the document, FIFA Pro document about the standards of football across the world and all the qualifying confederations, and it's like there's so many issues still out there. Countries don't have access to decent food or recovery facilities whilst they're around the national team. They get 1 day rest before going back to their clubs. All these little factors have a very, they add up and they have a big impact on the livelihood of that particular player or that team and how they then can go and perform in the next thing. Because you'll often find as players, like if you start to feel, let's say fatigued, you might then not feel the effects of that when you start to begin to feel fatigued because you carry on. You'll then feel the effects in a few months or in a few weeks' time. So it's almost like, how do you stop these issues from happening proactively rather than reactively? And I think that's a wider, approach to the issues. It's, high performance has to be at the forefront of the thinking to increase the level of football around the world.
Raise the standards across the game. Right, one name. Who wins it? Izzy.
Obviously, I want England to win it, but I think it'll be Germany.
Zoom pause. I don't know. It's tough to call, isn't it? Yeah. Are we cancelling England out because we know all?
No,
of
we're
us
going to keep
except
going round.
for us, Jen, want England to win?
We're going round in a circle till everyone says
Yeah.
Scottish fun in the room.
The Scot says
England.
England. Yeah.
Yeah.
Jen, England. Rachel.
No, I'd love to see England win it.
You'd love to, but who will win it?
I don't know.
Just say England.
Yeah, all right, England.
Thank you. Jen, England.
France.
Oh, I
If
thought you
not
said
England.
fans.
Yeah,
Yeah.
the fans are the
Fans are
winners.
winners.
Fans are the winners. And after all, football is the winner. Izzy Christiansen, Rachel Yankee, Jennifer Beattie, MBE, Prince William. How did he do it? Did you have the old sword across the head?
No, that's if you're knighted.
Nice.
Oh yeah,
Yeah.
of course it is.
Yeah.
No, but did you just not go in
I-
and chop
I
your
was-
head off? Go on.
What was the question?
What did he do, Prince William? What did he say to you? How's Jill Scott?
Apparently, he always talks about Joe, right?
Always talks about Jill.
He was lovely. He just spoke about caps for Scotland, Arsenal, and then I said, I heard you're a Villa fan, and then he said, yeah, Rachel Daly and Carla Ward are big people in his life now.
Really? And that is a Three Players and Podcast exclusive. Thank you, Jennifer Beattie. MBE didn't have the sword because you only have that if you're knighted. Do get in touch. Use the hashtag 3PP. Enjoy the World Cup wherever you're watching or listening, and enjoy Izzy on it too. She's the only one going with the air miles. Not bitter.